So it all starts with an idea. And this time it was not my idea. I just saw this video today and I got really motivated by it. So I decided to make it myself. Definitely check out this video. I'll have it linked in the comments. So the first thing I did was go to textures.com and downloaded some seamless apartment textures of buildings and just imported it into Blender with the Import as Planes add-on. I then just resized them and relocated them to make them easier to work with. Something I learned from Ian Hubert is just to add loop cuts and extrude some details you want. You can go crazy with this, but you don't have to. I just extruded the large beam in the middle and the balconies, of course. Later I replaced the glass texture with glass from another building, because this building had, of course, the railing baked into it and the air conditioning, so it would look a little bit goofy, but you'll see that later. So right now we're just setting up the material, and something weird I noticed with EEVEE and Import as Planes is that it has show backface enabled by default. I don't know if this is intentional or whatever, but it's really important you turn it off, because otherwise when you start extruding it will look weird. Now we have the balconies ready and the beam, and we can basically just, in the UV editor, we can basically just scale around the objects and their UV maps and place them wherever we want, where we can use them. Normally this wouldn't be really good, but for this it's just a render, so you don't need to bake the textures or something or have overlapping UV issues. It's just a render. We know it will work, so that's really important in this render. Something I started to do is care less about model quality and more about the end result, because you can spend a lot of time modeling things, but in the end people won't really notice. And that's especially true in this one, where we are going to use a lot of depth of field and you won't even see the most of the building. So just practicing some really bad habits, but we get there eventually. Something I like to do if I need to scale everything in the scene is just set the cursor to the world origin and set the transform orientation to be the 3D cursor. Then select everything and scale it up so everything stays intact. So right now we're just adding the same plane for the air conditioning, and just really easy this way. So, add in the same plane, give it the same material, and then grab the knife by pressing K and just cutting out the air conditioning, pressing enter and selecting it, inverting selection, removing everything and just extruding. Of course, turn off backface because it looks really ugly and stupid. We do it with the different air conditioning as well. Fix the UVs a little bit. Don't think too hard with this step. And now you have really easy air conditioning, which you can add in the background, of course. So just looking for another texture with clean windows and just importing it again. Now we're going to replace the other windows with these windows by importing the plane. So we have the material, and then just going to the building and selecting the face with the windows so we can scale them in the UV editor. Make sure to click on repeat instead of clip, so you get a repeating image and it doesn't clip at the end, giving some variations with the windows so they don't all look the same. And now we are going to make the railings by just selecting one edge and duplicating it, separating it into a different object, selecting it and then just extruding it up. Then we can add some loop cuts, select all the faces and checker deselect to get the fence pattern we want. So for the reflection in the windows, what you can do is just select the material and go to the properties, and using the image texture and plugging in a color ramp in between it and tweaking the sliders to get the roughness. I want the windows to be the least rough and the frames to be the most rough, of course. So black means really reflective and white means less reflective. So just plug it into the roughness, and we can change the transmission slider as well, which I will be doing with a image texture in a bit as well. If you're using transmission in EEVEE, make sure you have the screen space reflections enabled in the render properties and also having the refraction under that enabled. In your transmissive material, you want to go to the material settings and enable screen space reflections, and maybe changing the blend type to alpha hashed in both. Now we're just building more of the building, putting on a roof and adding some rooms, adding some air conditioning along the railings, and we can texture this later. I want to add this broken railing. Just turn on proportional editing and select connection only, so you don't mess with everything. And this looks good. So now we can add this corner, and we need a corner piece here. And setting up the camera, I wanted to go with 80mm in this scene because I really liked that focal length. I don't know why, it just looks so good, and it worked really well with this render. Adding the physical starlight and atmosphere skies as well, putting it in a morning mood because the clouds look so good. I tried adding some fines here and playing with the material, but it didn't really look good or like I wanted it to look, so I just deleted it. In the room I tried recycling a kitchen, which I had built previously. If you want this, just leave a comment and I'll post it on my Gumroad. If you want anything else in this video, you can also comment it. It will be greatly appreciated. So just copy paste it into the scene and make a collection so I don't have to reselect everything. And just scaling it down and placing it where I want it. Now I'm making a new building for in the background. Just doing the same steps over and giving this a little bit less geometry because it doesn't really matter as much. Just for catching shadows. So adding modifiers, doing the same material I showed before, making it really simple. Now I recycled a bed I made, but if you want this, you can also ask me in the comments. I will be happy to provide it on my Gumroad. A lot of reusing assets in this one, which made it really fun to do. And then it's a matter of fine-tuning everything. So adding windows to the building I just made for in the background, giving it some emission in some windows to make it look like people live there. And setting up a new transmissive material. Again, same principle. The building was really fun to model and it looks really great in the background. Of course, import the little robot in the render. And I didn't really know what to do in the beginning, but I figured it out. Just setting up the camera and everything to render and adding some trees in the foreground and midground to add some green, which this scene was lacking. It really added a lot to the final render and I really like trees. So I'm really happy to have the Botanic library, which is a great add-on. If Botanic wants to sponsor me, hit me up. So now just animating the robot and the materials. It's really straightforward, just add keyframes, press I a lot. And this is really creative, just make the characters move, make the environment move, however you'd like. And it was really the end of the render. Everything was finished. It looked really great. It looked really interesting. I also like playing with the focal length and the depth of field a lot in renders, so this was a perfect render to make. I had some trouble with the scanning material, but it turned out pretty okay. It's not really something special per se. So yeah, that's it. Like, subscribe, kiss my ass, goodbye.